Welcome to episode 8 of the Seeking Eye Life Exploration podcast. This is the first episode I've decided to do with video rather than just my voice. So if you're listening to this on Podbean or iTunes or anything like that, please feel free to jump over to YouTube and have a look at me in all my glory here. Now for episode 8, I've received a comment on the first introduction video from Frank Symes, who I shall put his comment up here now. And as you can see, it says, "Hello, my name is Frank, and I'd like you to do a conversation on assertiveness because I have problems giving things up because I cannot be assertive. Thank you very much." Thank you very much. So yeah, assertiveness is a difficult one, isn't it? Especially when you have various forms of anxiety, social anxiety, which I don't have social anxiety, but I do have anxiety, and I know exactly what it's like to be not very assertive. So I suppose the question in that statement is, how can we be more assertive to others in an appropriate, friendly way? Well, to begin to look at that, we need to look at what's preventing you from being assertive already, and to understand why that is. Here we go, into psychology. This is my thing. Now, the ego is a good word, which is planted around all the spiritual communities recently, and depending on the definition you use, it can mean different things. To me, the ego basically is the construction in your mind of what you are, what consists of you. That doesn't make sense, but you know what I'm trying to say. So that would include your gender, your political background, your religion, anything like that, anything that have come from ideas about you from outside of you, usually from your parents, your friends, your social group, things like that. All that comes together to create an idea of what you are, which is your ego. Ultimately, you're not that, but that's the idea of what you think you are. It's confusing, I know, but bear with me. Now that we kind of get an idea of what the ego represents, what that has to do with assertiveness is the anxiety that we face surrounding the protection of that ego, which we believe to be us. Being human, we have a very strong tendency to protect our identity. With animals, it's more to protect their physical bodies and to prevent themselves from dying, essentially. But with humans, it's a bit more complex than that. We have the need to survive, of course, that's inherent to everybody. But we also have the need to preserve our personality, our sense of dignity, which is based on what we believe we are. And to be assertive in some situations may result in us putting our sense of pride and our sense of perfection of ourselves, in some cases, to risk. We fear that if we're assertive, we are going to display a side of ourselves which shows us in a disfavourable light to whoever we're being assertive to. In other words, you don't want to say something bad to somebody because then they'll think you're a bit of a dick. And that doesn't feel good to be thought of as a bit of a dick. Now for me, when I was at school, I was always very, very quiet. I was the one that was bullied, or the one that people tried to bully, because I would never speak my mind. I'd just keep it all in, until ultimately things didn't turn out too well for me, which if you've seen the introduction you'd know about. And indeed now I wish I'd done things a bit more different and been a bit more, as we say, assertive. But that's besides the point. The reason why I never was assertive to anybody at school is because it was just the fear of the consequences of being assertive. The social kind of isolation that you'd face if you were assertive to the wrong person who was part of a group of other influential people in the school or at work or wherever it may be. And that's generally the reason why many people are very introverted as opposed to extroverted. It's not necessarily a bad thing to not be assertive. It's down to the personality that you have, which is part of you. There's no point in denying it. If you're a sensitive person and you don't like to upset anybody else, fine, I'm like that. Now, if you are of the personality where you're more introverted but you want to become more assertive, then that's a question of looking at your state of mind, which is essentially the basis of your personality, and looking at how to change that. As a psychotherapist in training, I'll tell you it's not easy. It's not easy at all. However old you are, imagine that your mindset has been conditioned over that many years of your life to be where it is now. And it's not going to be so easy to change that in little time compared to the number of years that it's taken to construct. To change a mindset which will be influential for the rest of your life is going to be a long, long process. But if you do it in the correct way, in a way that's not detrimental to you or others, you'll find that it will be a lot more beneficial in the long run. And there's a lot of models of CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, and things like that, which give you structures on how to do it, how to look at things more positively. But to me, it's a better way is to look at understanding how your mind is currently and why it does what it does. And therefore, instead of changing your state of mind, you go above it so that it doesn't affect you directly, but instead you see that it's more kind of you're playing a role which your mind is a part of. So, put it simply, there's you as you are, just awareness, looking at your mind, which is doing its own thing, which is to kind of fit in with society in a certain way, and being beyond that, being the observer of it, not the mind itself. You can then begin to kind of mould that mind to fit to any situation without that, or the consequences of that, affecting your well-being, because you're separate from that. Whether the mind is affected or not doesn't matter, because you're out here. The problem is we have been so deeply conditioned to believe that we are equal to our mind, which is essentially just an accumulation of information and beliefs given to us throughout our life, which is illusory, essentially. We are so conditioned to believe that that is us that we miss the true us, and as a result we try not to be assertive in order to protect the illusory sense of self, which is the mind, which is not us. If you're lost, I don't blame you, because it's bloody confusing, but it's so bloody simple when you look at it and you see it. It's just finding it. When you get to that stage where you can separate yourself from your mind, being assertive isn't a problem, because you have the intelligence inherently with that shift of consciousness that you are able to identify when being assertive is necessary and when it's detrimental to you or somebody else. And unfortunately that just comes with time and experience. We should now look at the negatives of assertiveness, especially when it's used extensively and unnecessarily. It's often peddled now that to be assertive and dominating in order to get what you want, which is usually a lot of money, a big house, nice family, whatever, high paying job, is kind of the pinnacle of human success, which it's not. This is just societal illusion, which isn't a term, but it is now. In other words, these are just beliefs people have created and everyone's gone along with them. Doesn't make any difference in existence. Existence doesn't care if you're poor or rich or an arsehole or a nice person. It doesn't care. But a lot of us humans have evolved to the state where we have inherent morals, where we can see what's right and wrong just intrinsically. And often we all know there's one knobhead in every group who's me and I, you do what I say, nothing else matters because what I say is true and correct. It's a form of self-delusion, unfortunately. But that's what it is to be kind of over-assertive, where you're pushing people away from you because of being assertive, not kind of creating a respect towards you. So to be under-assertive is something to be worked on, but also to be over-assertive is something to be worked on. To rein in your assertiveness, to be able to use it only when is appropriate. And finding that fine line is something that should be not taught, but felt. See, humans have something that a lot of animals don't. That's a sense of empathy. Well, many people do. Unfortunately, some don't seem to. But effectively, if you are cruel to someone and you make them cry, you feel bad for it. And I'm sure most, if not everybody, has felt this before. And that's kind of an inherent empathy, which feels bad. And it feels bad because our intrinsic... Bloody hell, battery's gone. Would you believe my camera ran out of battery? So if anything's changed, that's why. And now I've completely lost track of what I was talking about. So yeah, when to be assertive and when not to be assertive is something generally that you need to sense in yourself with your sense of empathy towards the person that you're associating with. It's not something that you should learn, something that you should gauge the other person, what they might think, what they might feel if you are more extroverted in their presence, because it's something that it's not something that can be taught. It's something that humans have inherently, as I say. So don't overcomplicate it. If it feels right to be assertive at that point, then do it. If it doesn't feel right, then don't. You'll know. It's just being able to be aware of that kind of intuition, I suppose. Now, of course, in every society you're going to find a knobhead or two. So if you run into someone that is extremely extroverted and extremely over the top kind of aggressive, you get them. It's just a sign that they're maybe not quite as mature as they should be at this stage, but they will be over time. It just takes time. And the important thing is, don't resent people like that. Don't be aggressive back towards them, because there's no point. You'll just cause a big row and it will be more stress on you and more stress on them. Just understand that at their period of life, due to their experiences that they've had, they're the way they are. It's not necessarily their fault. It's just the way that they've been brought up has taught them how to interpret things, and that's probably been interpreted as aggression towards them, and therefore they're reacting with aggression to you. Yeah, I think that gets across the point, I hope. So if you've seen or listened to any of my podcasts before, then you'll know that generally I just kind of turn the camera on. Well, I will start turning the camera on and this thing, and I just start talking about the subject. I think I kept on track. I hope I did. It was assertiveness was the general topic, and I might have wandered away a little bit, but I think we kind of stayed around that area. I hope so. So let me know in the comments or in the reviews. I don't know how iTunes and all that crap works, but I'm sure you can leave some sort of review on it. Just let me know if it was all right, if it made sense, and if it helped in any way. As I say, I'm not an expert in these kind of things. I'm a studying psychotherapist, still studying being the main word. But I'm just talking about these subjects through my own experiences that I've had living with anxiety, depression, and various things that I've seen and experienced. So I can only talk as far as I know. It might not be 100% correct, but this is just my experiences. So thanks very much for watching if you're on YouTube, or listening if you're not. If you are on YouTube, let me know how the whole format of having a video as well works. It's very strange talking to a camera and trying to maintain eye contact. I've got the flip thing open there, so I'm constantly looking at myself and being self-conscious. It's very weird. It's the first time I've done it, so hopefully I've done all right. Hopefully I don't look too amateurish, which I definitely probably likely do. So without further ado, I've now got more work to do with video and audio editing. Let me know. You can send me an email at seekingeye.mail@gmail.com, or by just clicking the contact link on the website, or leaving a comment, either or. And hopefully I'll see most of you in the next episode.